And welcome to the hub that could have been. Okay, a little history. So we're in the middle of 2009, and us at SCEA, we wanted to reimagine the hub and give it a new, firm direction. Honestly, we were a little bit rudderless in the first few years. The executives had called from on high and decreed, "Make me a 3D social space and make money in transmission." And we sat there looking at each other, like, what does that mean? What do we do? You know, nowadays, there's a bit of a rich history of successful platforms that you can kind of like look at for help, you know, getting a little bit of a definition of what to do or a direction. But in 2009, you know, let's think, MySpace is 6 years old, and that's Facebook for those of us who were not around during the MySpace era. Facebook itself, let's see, that's about 5 years old at the time. And, you know, at that time, social media was still a relatively new concept. And they were not dealing with the third dimension or the limitations of console memory like we were. You know, we knew about Second Life, which had come out around 2003. But what made it successful, we could not replicate on the PlayStation brand. So we had to forge our own path. And it took us a few years to figure out what that was. Our metrics, for the most part, came from the community managers. We knew people did events and played minigames. Also, some of our partner studios started having really good success with full-blown games inside of the home spaces. And we decided, okay, games. We're going to head in the direction of games. Which is shockingly not the first thing that came to our minds when it came to entertaining people who own game consoles. So anywho, circling back, it's 2009. We know we want to focus on games, and we know we want to give SCEA Home a new, fresh look. Now, understand that our internal SCEA team did not have concept artists. So during the early years, we relied on an outsourcing firm called Working Library to come up with ideas. They were really good. They helped come up with a lot of ideas and looks for our spaces. For one, the overall look of the playground space actually came from their designs. So while Working Library was working on their designs, our management team decided to give us a chance to also come up with ideas and pitches for the new look of the hub. So I can't quite remember, but I think we were given a couple of weeks to come up with an idea and set it up for presentation. Some of the team made 3D block spaces, and some of us also did, you know, the best that we could with our version of concept art. Now this space is one of 4 block meshes that were pitched by our team. Now the coolest thing is I can tell you the exact date and time the pitch was made, which was on August 18th of 2009 at exactly 4:00 p.m. Now, as awesome as my memory is, which it totally isn't, I only happen to know the exact date because as part of my quote-unquote added detail, I had stamped it on a fake clock that is in the space. I really wanted to make the space feel as immersive as possible, given the short amount of prep time we actually had. I didn't even mention it during the presentation, but the execs actually did catch on and notice it. Yeah, they don't miss a beat. Now, I will say that there is some differences between the space that is being presented here versus the one that was presented back in the day. So, for one, the storefronts didn't have displays or windows. For two, none of the assets were animated. Like there was no time to do anything like that. You know, when it came to the presentation, I would like point at those assets and I'd be like, and this will be a beautiful storefront, and you know, and we can sell clothes, and it's gonna be amazing, and up there, and everything will be moving and animated. You know, you use your imagination, which again, not when it comes to execs. No imagination. You gotta show it to them. You gotta show it to them. So what did I show them? You know, what were the highlights of the space? For one environment instead of 4. At the time, we were still kind of debating whether we wanted to have multiple spaces or just a single space. And my vote was for a single space, primarily because, you know, we knew about the loading times. we knew people hated to have to wait to download every single space, and my argument was like, look, let's charge up this space. We'll make it like a little bit heavier for download times than the typical space, but it's one space, so it should go by quicker. And the attached sell point with that was, rather than having four spaces with distinct environments, we could just have one environment with four themes for each corner, which is part of the reason why I built it like a city, so that I could have really tall buildings that could hide in nooks, like a totally different thematical environment within the exact same space. So you turn the corner and everything looks like a regular city. But you start walking forward, you turn, you look down one streetway, and it's like, holy smokes, there are dragons flying and there's floating islands. And then you turn and you look at the opposite corner, and it's like nighttime and there's flying saucers or something. And then you turn to another corner and it's the middle of the day and it's the beach. It could be anything. That was the basic idea behind the space and the four basic nooks that I had designed. The goal here was we could fill them with anything: new events, seasonal content, and of course, gaming advertisement. Sony would get to sell a 3D immersive advertisement, and we get to make a small, cool little bite-sized nook of unique art assets. Quite manageable for our team. And I totally wasn't thinking about making our team's lives easier or funner in any way, shape, or form. A wink. Now, I knew that there were supposed to be four spaces, but at the time we hadn't quite defined what those spaces were, so I knew that the action district was definitely a thing that was like already on lockdown. So okay, this is going to be action. We're going to dedicate it to like games like Uncharted and SOCOM, Resistance, Last of Us. These would be the themes that you would actually see if you look down this particular nook. Now for the presentation, I wanted to help the execs visualize what a marketing takeover of the action nook would look like. And Resistance 2 had just come out, so I chose that as this particular facade's theme. So to put this together, I straight stole from the SOCOM space and quickly slapped this together. We had to save time where we could, and the SOCOM space had a bunch of finished destroyed assets already. This was going to be internal, and it was much quicker to just grab existing assets that had already been published, just to move the look along. Now the next nook was, it was actually a space that never actually made it live. We called it the NightLife district, and it was supposed to be a casual space for nightclubs and meetups, and it was just supposed to serve the social community.
I wonder where a guy, an everyday Joe like myself, could find a little action. Yeah.
But the problem was we didn't know how to market or sell it or wrap it around the game's theme that we were more or less striving for. So at the time, I struggled to come up with facade ideas for this one. I thought maybe a limo or a magic carpet could come and pick you up at the entranceway and whisk you away to other spaces. I didn't really know what to do with this. Of course, as we all know, there was never any night district. That ended up getting replaced with what now people know as the casual district. Now, moving on, if you look over here, it's empty. And the reason why it's empty is at the time there was no definition for what the third space was going to be, which ended up being the sports district. But at the time that I was building the space, we didn't know what we were going to put here. So I just left it blank. I just left it as a nice evening afternoon, and maybe I was like, for me myself, I was thinking like maybe I'll just set it up as a beach or something. But I don't know how we could have ever gamified that particular idea. Um, but yeah, I could easily see like if it's like a Roman Colosseum with like carriages in that corner, as it transforms, from the New York City into that, or just a sports arena with like people cheering off in the distance, and maybe a zeppelin up in the sky or something. I definitely could have turned it into something had I known that this was eventually going to become the sports district. And this last Nook was the one I really poured some detail into. This would have been the Adventure District, which was the other district that I knew for fact we were actually going to make. Adventure would be home to games like Little Big Planet, Fat Princess, Ratchet and Clank, games that had a less serious adult tone to them. Now, the story behind this facade, I'm a huge fan of Ratchet and Clank's art style, and Crack in Time is about to come out. And the marketing team had made these heroic promo shots of Ratchet standing in front of this massive futuristic city. And I was like, oh, I want to make that. And I thought, wait, I need to dress up the Adventure District. And I really want to sell this idea of the Nooks being these transitioning portals into other worlds. The marketing material is fresh in everyone's mind, and I'm thinking this could be an excellent example of something we could do inside of the new hub for Ratchet and Clank to show the execs and the marketing team our potential. Oh, I could see it now. Come to me, and you'll see a world of pure advertisement dollars. Shamelessly, I plug thee into a world of pure advertisement, our imagination. At least this would be better than some traditional promo video and a bunch of still posters. So I went ahead and I made it, but not for this space. I had actually made it for an older hub space concept we had dubbed ChinaTown Back Alley. Keep an eye out for that space. It'll have its own video story. So I built this massive Ratchet and Clank city, and we abandoned this space before I even get a chance to present it. And I'm like, damn it, all that work. Now my idea is never going to see the light of day. And then we get the call to design Hub 2.0. And I'm like, oh, here it is. It's going to go in that. Finally, I could pitch this idea of transitioning portals that I thought would be a really cool way to fade in the competing art styles. Because Home had a very clean, realistic look to it, which didn't always match well with some of the games that we were trying to promote. So the last thing I'll say about this facade is the crazy aggressive perspective trick that I employed. But I'm going to save that for its own separate video. Just head on over to the Adventure District and you can see it there. Okay, so that takes us round robin back to the middle here, where we have this very obvious three-legged elephant that I haven't addressed. So what are these three pillars in the center of the hub? Well, you're looking at the main feature of this space, which I dubbed the core. The idea of the core was that it was a data nexus for everything you wanted to know about PlayStation and Sony products. 3 boards running real-time information, basically an interactable 3D web page. Home didn't really have a very good way to communicate updates and events. From what I remember, players had to go to a website to find out most information. And I always thought we could do better, and I figured why not have that information available in one space? So my personal goal with the hub was, okay, even if you're not into the social space idea, but you're a gamer, my hope was that you would put up with downloading this space because you would get updated on everything in one place rather than having to scour the entire internet to get the exact same information. I mean, heck, you might even stay and chat with someone about it, which would be exactly what I would want. Yes, yes, step into my web. Okay, so I set up the information into three categories, hence the pillars. The first was players. Everything I could think of that I would want to know as a player in home was placed here. Well, that could fit. It was the pillar that I had facing players when they first came into the hub. Since I figured it would be probably the most popular pillar, the one that everybody would kind of like gravitate towards first. So at the top, much like a crown, I wanted to highlight the best player that was locally in that hub instance at that exact moment in time. I thought it might encourage competition, or at the very least a little social dialogue. The fact that it was local meant that more players would get recognized for their efforts rather than one player getting all the glory on a leaderboard. So that would give many more players a chance to peacock. Which would mean more players might want to engage with the minigames, which in turn would also mean that it would help keep the retention high. By the way, props to you if you know who the master is. So the second thing down from the list were game trailers, because as a gamer I wanted to see what was coming around the corner. And then after that, the release dates, because I could never remember the release dates of anything, because my memory is garbage, and I can't remember what the game trailer said 2.5 seconds ago. So having that in a link to the game's webpage would have been a godsend to me, even if it was via that horrible PlayStation 3 web browser. Okay, so the last thing on this pillar would have been an alternating leaderboard. With whatever the latest games would have been at that time, hopping between global and local stats. And that pretty much concludes this pillar. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, which would be the events pillar. Yes, that's right. All the events, one pillar to rule them all, one pillar to find them, one pillar to bring them into dark, blah, 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 and bind them. None of that nonsense, look it up on a webpage business. No, it's all right here. Now, there isn't too much to say about this one, honestly. I mean, it's kind of straightforward. It's filled with events. I guess some quick notes. I do remember that the home patches used to be like a big thing that people had to get informed about on the webpage. And so that's one of the things that I actually included on this events pillar. I thought that would have been like a really nice thing for everyone to know. It's like, hey, there's a big one coming, and go ahead and set your PlayStation so they go ahead and download for the following day, or that night, or whatever. At least you'd be informed and you could actually like make some scheduling decisions. The other thing was that I'd kind of run out of events for this one when I was making it, and I was like, well, what do I got to fill it with something? And so the first thing that popped in my head was like, the local weather. So I popped in the local weather, and like that ate up like a third of the pillar's screen there. And then I was like, might as well do a date and time. I mean, it's be like a nice thing to have. And that is the clock that I was talking about earlier, the fake clock that has our presentation meetings date and time stamped in on it. So yeah, this, like I said, this was a quick one. Moving on, let's talk about the last pillar, which is the media pillar. This last pillar was dedicated to all of Sony's other IPs. Sony Pictures, so you could see Sony Picture movie trailers, or Blu-ray release dates, which I thought would have been a pretty cool thing to have. I would have loved to have known when a release date for one of the Sony movies was going to come out. The same thing kind of is more or less mirrored for Sony Music. Just find out who are the latest artists and what are their latest releases and what dates they're going to come out, so you could go ahead and do your purchases. or pre-orders. So I will say that it wasn't only dedicated toward, it's called media, but it was honestly, it was a kind of an open marketing ticket. So like anything that Sony wanted to market, that's what this pillar was designed for. So imagine the Sony cameras, their sound systems, or their Bravia TVs. It was an open-ended platform, so they could insert anything that they wanted to in here. The other thing I will say about this too, it wasn't like they asked us to do something like this. This was just something that I kind of came up with my head, where I was like, it'd be kind of nice to keep the company going. I work for them, and I want their stocks to go up, and so this was I thought like a really nice setup for them to be able to work off of. So that wraps up the pillars, and lastly, because this video isn't long enough, I'll talk about some of the ideas I had behind the layout and design choices that I made for this hub. We'll start off with the spawn point. Like I said in the first video, the whole point of the spawn point was to hide the primary hub and make it so that every time that you loaded in and traveled for 1,000 light years, which I know they would have definitely forced me to change that, because they would have been like, oh, I hate walking. Like, yeah, I know, you're right. Point being is you would get a reveal of whatever changes were in the space. If I had to tell the truth, more than likely this would have gotten cut, simply because it would have just made the environment too big. But for the purposes of this original block mesh, this was the idea. That's why it's here, so you can see it in all of its majesty. Anyways, moving forward. The first thing I had was like a little store immediately to the right of the spawn point, where people could immediately like see what the latest styles were. I also thought of this as like real estate, where like actual stores, like I don't know if you knew this, but actual stores did actually lease digital space in order to sell their goods on the PlayStation Mall. And so I thought this is the exact same thing. Like, look, this could either be our own PlayStation Store trying to sell stuff, or if somebody wants to lease this space and they want to like show off whatever, this could be an actual storefront, like an actual legitimate leased digital storefront. Okay, next up is this building, which I designed to look a little bit like the building in Times Square. And that's because I wanted to also have, like, during a New Year's event or something like that, like the little ball that would like drop, and everybody would like be partying here at the plaza. And so that the whole point of why I made this building the way that I made it was just so that I could have like a little miniature Times Square building. Let's see, moving on. Well, I had to show that there was a mall, and there it is. It's a mall. Nice and comfy mall. And I also decided to have like another little congregation point, kind of like a private like little nook that was right next to the mall, which was like this little private cafe, in case people wanted to kind of like have a little bit more distance and talk about something else, or just a space that was a little bit further out from the main core hub. So this brings us to the mecca of knowledge and congregation, the hub core itself. I wanted everyone to start their play sessions at the pillars. And I set up the pillars to be in the dead center of this space, where you could be attracted by the 4 marketing facades, the nooks. You would be surrounded by stores, for whatever digital goods that were currently available. And then you would have these information pillars, with also enough congregation room around you, where people would be able to like pile up around, and they would be able to either sit down and discuss things that were like whatever the latest news was, or they could just kind of be standing and like typing to each other, and just kind of like getting chit chat information. So the point was, this was the place to do it. And this moves us on to the next item, mascots. So if you're wondering why there's an ugly block mesh of a Sackboy here, it's simple. I love the Sackboy character, and I wanted him to be our PlayStation mascot. I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog and Mario, and I saw that with the PlayStation 3, and we were starting to separate from mascots representing game consoles, and to me, I always felt like that was a mistake. So I placed these two in the environment as a Trojan horse to try to get a dialogue going with the executives. I mean, I had them pegged as guides for players inside PlayStation Home, but the deeper rooted thing for me was like, look, we got to get the mascots back. This is ridiculous. What are you doing? I mean, look, it's 2024 and Mario's still representing Nintendo. It doesn't seem to be hurting the image none. Just saying, Sony. Just saying. In any case, I would have used all of our other IPs. But yeah, I'd probably still be pushing Sackboy the most as our primary spokesman, given the chance. Though, to be honest, I would have been just as happy to have used Toro and Doku, who are, I think they're the Japanese official mascots for PlayStation, but I don't know, I have no idea why we didn't use them here in the States, because they look like pretty awesome characters here to me, so I'm not sure why that wasn't done. Another really good alternative would have been Astro, although he came out during the PlayStation 4's lifecycle, so unless I'd had the ability to see into the future, I wouldn't have been able to use them. But yeah, that's why the Sack Boys are here. They were going to be guides. And so now if you look over here, you'll see that I also made like a little tiny kiosk. This kiosk was not originally in the original pitch. I kind of added that when I sort of added like a little bit of extra detail for this reveal that you guys are currently all taking a look at. But I definitely would have probably put this in because I did have it in the back of my head when I was building the space. The idea would be that this would be somewhere where you would pick up, I don't know, tickets, or like if there was like an event and you needed to have like some sort of a digital good or a ticket, or if you wanted to receive a prize, you would come up to this kiosk, and this kiosk would facilitate that. It could also be, it could be closed sometimes, it could be open. It would just kind of depending on what it is that we would want to do with it at PlayStation Home. All right, so next up is the park. The idea that I had for the park was to kind of have a quiet, serene space, kind of away from the centralized hub. You could sit here and you can enjoy a view of like the water, and it's like midday, and you can kind of like see an oiler ship like off in the distance over there, and it's like, it's just a nice, relaxing day. I would have probably had birds chirping and just flying seagulls off in the distance. Just a nice little serene corner to look at. That's not like the crazy centralized hub with all of its, signs and sounds and all of that. This would have been a nice, relaxing, like little direction to like look at and just kind of disconnect from things. So, I'm a huge fan of water. At least to me, it's very calming. So that's why I made the decision to have a view of the ocean. In addition to the fact that also, if there is an ocean, then there aren't buildings, and I don't have to build them because there's an ocean. So that was the reason why 1/4 of the map, or probably I'd say like about a quarter or a third. I'd probably say about a quarter of the map is just all ocean. And it was just so that we could save a little bit on both memory budget and construction time for this particular space. Okay, so a quick blurb about the advertisement for the space. Advertising is hard. No one wants to get pandered to. Nobody wants to have advertisements shoved in their face. And when I was doing the layouts and designs of the space, I had that in the back of my mind the entire time. If we had to do advertisement, I wanted it to be creative. I don't mind marketing if it's subtle or smartly crafted. Look, the reality of this was you had to have advertisement. It was the only way to keep something as large as PlayStation Home alive. With that said, that didn't mean that we could at least try to be a little bit creative about it. You know, I wanted to see giant sack boys popping out of the wall, saying hello, or a Batman-style silhouette projection. You know, siren song dragging you into something. Granted, those were not subtle, but at least they showed a little bit more initiative and effort. The point is, there was a lot of potential in this new media format to do something other than posters and trailers. And my hope was when I made the block mesh, I could convey a taste of that potential. I know it's asking a lot of a rushed arrangement of cubes and cylinders, but you know, I had to try anyways. This said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and call this good for this video. I think it's definitely been long enough. I thought I was gonna do like a quick 5-minute thing, and I was, you know, when I first started this video, I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna fill 5 minutes of time? And boy, did I. The other thing I could also say too is, hats off to the people who do this on the weekly, because this is not easy, man. This is way not easy. In any case, thank you for watching. Please go ahead and, you know, look around and enjoy the space. And if you have any comments, this will probably be also posted up on YouTube or the like. So you know, please feel free to add comments there.